They built this whole neighborhood out of wood, out of wood. I guess I'll still be around when they burn it down. I will be standing around when they burn it down. Here in the Museum of Idiots.
See, we usually begin the week with new songs, and we will for the rest of the show today. We will do new songs. This is an older song, but I happened to hear it coming back from New York on Saturday night. And I just thought, it's been a while since we played the Museum of Idiots. And it's always the right day to play the Museum of Idiots. So anyway, what were we thinking? All right, it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. And the plan is that you call 888-720-9677. It might be actually stretching a point to call it a plan. 888, the hope, the 888-720-WNPR. That's one way you can do it. You can dial it alphanumerically, 888-720-WNPR. You can do that. Can you do that? Sure you can. All right, we've got people calling in right now. I have things that I wouldn't mind talking about, but I don't need to talk about them. Let's start with Mike in Woodbury. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So we need to talk about Graham, not Kevin, Graham Plattner, who is the Democratic candidate running against Susan Collins for the Senate in the state of Maine. And, Susan Collins, she's been there forever. She's considered a moderate, even though she always seems to cave when it comes to voting against Trump. Although I think she did actually vote to indict him the second impeachment, I believe. But
she could only vote to convict there.
Yes, convict.
I can't remember what she did. Yeah. But okay. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But anyway, Plattner. So the problem with him, there's a number of problems with him. Is first of all, this is the most famous thing about him. He's got this tattoo, which is the Totenkampf, which is the death's head insignia of the SS. Totenkampfverbände, which is one of the branches of Hitler's Waffen SS. Now, he says he got this, when he was in the Marines 20 years ago. He was drunk, and they all did it, but he's kept it for 20 years. And he's got some very, very dodgy social media posts. Basically like that. He's called some people. He said women who were concerned about sexual assault should wear Kevlar underwear, and some really kind of bad stuff. And it so if I was a registered voter in Maine, I'm afraid I just wouldn't vote, because I certainly wouldn't help get the Republicans have them keep the Senate. I really would love to see the Democrats take it back, but this guy, I just couldn't vote for somebody with this kind of character. I tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of this really good friend of mine who is a lifelong Republican, but a Reagan, Bush Republican, who in 2016, when Trump became the nominee, he said, "This guy is terrible. I hate him. This is an outrage. It's disgusting." And he didn't vote for him in the primaries, but he voted for him in the general election against the dreaded Hillary Clinton. He put aside his concerns about the guy's character, and I think that's the problem here. I mean, do you vote strictly on partisan reasons and just ignore the guy's character, or do you just say I can't vote for him because I don't think this guy should be in the United States Senate? So that's the dilemma.
It's a complicated question. And adding to the complications, I don't know how up to date you are on this part of it, but it has also come out that he's kind of not really as working class as he says he is.
Oh, yeah.
That in
exactly.
fact, his father's parents are divorced. His father's a lawyer. At this point, his mother runs a restaurant, which is the number one client of his oyster farm. In other words, the person buying his oysters is, first and foremost, his mother. His father is, staked him with money on a number of occasions. So this idea that he's kind of working class and scraping by, I mean, that's a little bit called into question as well. He's not working class and scraping by. Like, it's not, Roseanne Barr's family or something in the sitcom. I guess to be serious for a moment, I think, first of all, we are in a different environment right now, and an environment where people are evaluated somewhat differently. And obviously 10 years ago, this would have been and should have been a deal breaker. The tattoo, the stuff on social media. I think he's kind of gone back more recently to some of the, or at least to one of the more problematic podcasts that he's been on. All of this it tends to be a really big problem, or at least in the past it did. It's not clear to me where we are right now. It seems to me that the electorate kind of values a kind of raw genuineness as opposed to some kind of institutional presumed stultification. And so Plattner, he said, yeah, I was a Marine and I did 3 combat tours and I got drunk and I got this stupid tattoo and I regret it now and I repudiate it, whatever. And he has left a trail of problematic stuff. On the other hand, it does seem as though we're in an environment right now where if you can handle this the right way and come off as flawed but genuine, that brand, I think, can work in certain elections, and Maine might be one of them. So, I don't know what I would do if I were a voter in Maine. I would probably just vote for Plattner and hope he turns out not to be a complete, monster. And as to Collins, there's certainly a working theory about Collins that the moderate thing is a disguise. That ultimately she's a pretty much down the line Republican vote, with a few notable exceptions, but by and large, she's, pretty bog standard conservative, but nobody should be fooled. Certainly, the thing is, nothing comes back to haunt people anymore. Have you noticed this? Nothing. I mean, not just Plattner, for anybody. And so, after the first impeachment where she didn't vote to convict, and she said, presumably he's learned his lesson. She said, Donald Trump has learned his lesson. And that's why she didn't vote to convict, because he learned such an incredible lesson. When you had to impeach the guy all over again, I mean, that kind of undercut that point. And you'd sort of think, well, that should have come back to haunt her. But she didn't, I just feel like you don't lose elections for the reasons you used to lose elections. And some of that's evolution. I mean, when, was it Eagleton? Was that his name? The vice president of Kennedy?
Thomas Eagleton.
Tom Eagleton, he had a history of depression and stuff like that. And I mean, I think he had electroconvulsive therapy and stuff. And that just knocked him out. I'm not sure it would today. And so I don't know what the standards are anymore. I think if I were a voter in Maine, I would just vote for Plattner and cross my fingers and hope that the story he's telling about himself today is the real story. But I would do that with only like 62% conviction.
Well, he's apparently about 6 points ahead in the polls for her, but she has a way, it seems like, of defying polls and coming back and winning, no matter what the polls say. But who knows?
You think it's gonna be like Carrie? The hand's gonna come up out of the ground at the end. You didn't kill me. All right. Well, listen. Thanks for getting the show started. We've got Eric. We got Tony's in a car. Let's see if we can deal with Tony's issues so that he can drive worry free. Hi, Tony.
Hey there, Colin. How are you?
Just fine.
Oh, awesome. So I wanted to float this concept past you. I feel like it's something you may appreciate. Certainly worth discussing. I've come to call it spousal knowledge, and the concept basically, our significant others or people that we spend a lot of time with, generally have careers, professional license, all these things. that we come to know a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very difficult to get credit for those things, right? Like, it's almost like I have a minor. So, for instance, like, my wife is a social worker, and so I know a fair amount about mental health and psychology and, you know, addiction treatment. But I don't get to tell people that, right? I can't put it on my resume. And it's knowledge that I feel is helpful. And I think it's, you know, I don't know. I just think it's an interesting concept, like, worth it being discussed, you know.
So your concept is there a way to assign some kind of value to that? Because my question would be, and I'm just asking this question in the interest of prolonging what could be a very interesting discussion as opposed to trying to knock it off the table right away, is, you know, it seems like a kind of a floating idea. I mean, there are some people, as far as I can know, there's some people who have no understanding and almost no idea what their spouse or partner does. And you ask them some questions, they go, I don't know. He just leaves the house every day. I don't know. So
maybe there's an exam or something we can take, you know, that would, you know, cause I suspect, I don't know necessarily what your significant other does, you know, but I suspect you probably know a fair amount of that. And it's just, you know, I meet people, especially that are in like mental health field for my, you know, specific case. And, you know, I can speak eloquently about that and knowledgeably about that. And it's just, I don't know, I guess that's really it. You know, like, I'm a real estate appraiser. My wife knows way more about real estate appraisal than she probably would like to, you know. And,
but also, if like somebody flips out on you during a real estate appraisal, you can go, "You're decompensating right now." You know, you've got some things that you can say from your wife. So it is. Let me just say this. On my end, first of all, one thing no one has ever heard on the air of this show in all of its 17 years or however old it is. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's heard the name of my significant other, my partner. She's always known, you know, by abbreviations and things like that. So let alone what she does or ever did. But and that's because I'm not allowed to say it. If I were to say it, a curare tipped dart would immediately like come out of one of the cameras here and hit me in the neck, and that would
no doubt.
So, but I will say this: my significant other has a background in politics and has run campaigns at times, and I certainly know a lot of stuff that reporters tend not to know because we're on the outside of campaigns looking in, which is why, for example, over the past 2 weekends, when we watched the floor fight with Larson and Bronin, and then the floor fight with Lamont and Elliott, and even the floor fight that got Betsy McCoy knocked out, one of the things that I have said on a couple of occasions is, you know, when there's a convention floor fight, sometimes it becomes more important who the floor managers are than who the candidate is, because that's who the people are dealing with and being threatened by. You know? Right. And I might have a little inside knowledge about how that works. So I totally get your idea. And I think you might be onto something, that we don't really assign a value to it. We don't really say, oh, well, you know, not only does Tony know a lot about real estate evaluation, but he actually has quite a background in psychiatric social work.
Right.
So assuming there's any difference at all, who can really say? All right, so I'm going to throw that one out there to everybody else. If you're listening right now, I don't know that this is necessarily a big conversation starter, but it doesn't make any difference because we're going to go to Eric and talk about pollen in a couple of seconds. Got a little pollen going on right now. But the question would be, does the expertise of your spouse or a partner, life partner, or whatever, does that spill over onto you? Are you entitled to any kind of credit or deference because, in fact, you have spent the last 10, 20, 30 years sharing a life with somebody who is a professional, let's say hitman? You know, I mean, are you allowed to say, you know, that and the angle of that shot was not a, you know, but whatever it doesn't have to be hit person. I'm sorry. But you know, is there in fact some value that could be ascribed to you because of who you're married to or living with and what their profession is? I think I've described the conundrum here. 888. We'll just call it the Tony conundrum going forward. 88. No. Because spousal knowledge. That's what we're calling it, SK. All right, so the number is 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR. also wondering how my significant other would answer this particular question, whether she feels as though, I think she probably feels as though she knows, quite a bit about talk radio right now. Not from me, but just generally. All right. Part of the question, there's a separate question about there are different degrees of how much anybody's listening when the other person's talking about their job, too. Some people listen with rapt attention. Some people not so much. So it can't be a universal value. I think Tony's right. You have to pass a test or something. Here is Eric from Cheshire to not talk about this, but to talk about something else, because that's the format here. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Colin. It's actually Subaru Eric calling to inform you that I've been yelling at a row of Scotch pine trees that have been planted near my parking space and demanding that they stop spewing their sperm-laden dust all over my Outback, my skin, and into my eyes and up my nose.
Yeah, I used to have a parking space where I got a lot of sperm-laden stuff all over my car, and I did not appreciate it, and it wasn't from trees. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a seminal. I should have added to that term sperm-laden seminal dust. okay, because I've quizzed a lot of my coworkers and friends to explain in simple terms what pollen is and what the process of pollination, of flower pollination, is about. And most of them basically understand that pollen is involved in fertilizing a flower and producing seeds.
Right. You have to start with, if a pistil and stamen love each other very much, and then you sort of go from there. All right. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of give you something that I paraphrase from a book titled Botany in a Day by Thomas J. Elpel, E-L-P-E-L. And by stating that flower pollen actually contains sperm in it.
I think you now hold the record for saying sperm on this show in the course of one phone call. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
a prize will be sent.
And basically, the process of flower pollination all gets down to sex. And the fact that flowering plants have sex lives, in which either the wind or rain or insects get into the act by delivering sperm from the male part of one flower to the female part of another flower on a separate plant. And I just had talked with Robin when...
I hope you didn't say sperm to Robin as much as you've said it to me, because I just don't think that's appropriate.
No, I didn't, but she actually told me.
The Lord. Well, she certainly didn't say sperm to you. I know Robin very well.
Okay, are we getting into an esoteric topic here?
No, we're getting into a forbidden topic.
A forbidden topic.
We don't acknowledge the existence of human procreation in public radio.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
We just prefer mitosis. It's cleaner, and we don't have to put out, any kind of weird merch. All right, so we need to get to the point here because there's other people waiting. I don't mean to rush you, but I am rushing you.
Well, I'll just pose this question.
Okay.
Is science education shortchanging a lot of people by its being so sexually hung up in this area? And is it particular to America being the world's most religious and then maybe also the world's most sexually obsessed country?
I certainly believe that Jonathan Edwards, the great 17th century Puritan divine who lived and preached in both Windsor and Northampton, said that in the eyes of the Almighty, every single damn tree out there is thinking about sex all day long. So, I mean, I think as part of our Puritan heritage, you would be correct. However, We have to move along here. There's just no other way around it. But thanks very much for your phone. Oh, I didn't put you on hold yet. I'm out of practice, apparently. All right, let's get one more spousal thing on, and then we'll go to break. I know somewhere out there Lily Tyson wants us to go to break, but we're not going to do it. All right, here is Jim from New Haven. Hi, Jim. Oh, my God, Jim, you're inside an aircraft engine right now. Is this safe?
Well, I don't know. I'm just driving in my truck through the roads of Hamden here, but it seems like it's safe. Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, I'm a horticulturist by nature, and that last conversation was wow.
It was disgusting.
Oh. But the one thing he didn't mention is that pollen doesn't just float into your nose; it actually has like a little drill on it, and it burrows in. So that's why it's such a problem. I am married to a spiritual leader.
A spiritual leader, okay. So we're talking minister, priest, rabbi. Okay. I didn't really need to know. I was just,
and I am constantly beset by people asking me for religious, information, answers.
Yes.
And I'm not a rabbi. I'm a gardener.
So people are coming up to you and going, Jim, if a man has 2 daughters and 3 tracts of land, they're looking for sort of kind of
right, exactly, exactly. My neighbor stole my chicken. Do I have to give him a cow?
Well, that wouldn't make any sense. Giving somebody a cow after they stole your chicken, Maimonides would not.
Well, how many chickens did they steal, though? But the question is, I agree, and there are things. I've been married 35 years, and I've learned a lot.
Oh yeah.
And, I try not to usurp my wife's, job, relationship, whatever. But, I don't know. But I think you are expected to know something of what your spouse does.
On the other hand, yes, I think that's right. On the other hand, can your expertise, certainly if you were married to a mohel, and it was like, well, the mohel can't come today, but Jim can come. That would alarm me anyway, personally.
No, that wouldn't work.
You want the person who's had the full amount of. You don't even want a mohel student. Somebody who's there on a fellowship. You want the mohel.
I'm going to show up with my grafting knife and grafting wax, and it's just not going to work.
Yeah. All right, I can't wait to see what the headline for this show is going to be. It's going to be when we put up the web post. I think there's a lot of choices right now, and we're being produced by the Isaac Moss Report for the first time ever. So the Isaac Moss Report will be deciding the headline. But if you have a suggested headline for the show, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. We're going to take a break. We actually have a bee call. We didn't plan it that way. But we'll be talking about bees too. But let's talk about whatever you want to talk about.
We built a home out of wreckage. Love is salvation and art is for life. Lucky we know how to build it. We'll pick you up, dust you off, say our goodbyes. Lucky we know how to build it. We'll pick you up, dust you off, say our goodbyes. Lucky we know how to build it. We'll pick you up, dust you off, say our goodbyes. Pick you up, dust you off, say our goodbyes. Goodbye. Oh, na, na.
I don't know anything. The older I get, it seems I know less and less. I don't know anything. I'll be the first to admit it. Some people know everything, and they'll tell you so at the drop of a dime. They're always right, never a doubt in their mind. I think it's impressive. I wish I could live like that. I've never been so sure about a thing in my life. Any confidence I have is a fleeting point in time. I'll never know anything, 'cause I just like to spend my days taking taking up space, watching the world burn from somewhere safe. I'll never change a thing.
All right, so we're back. That really could be the theme song for these episodes, for all of them. But we would never do anything as conventional as to have a theme song. All right, so we are at 888-720-9677. That's where you call if you want to ask or tell me anything. 888-720-WNPR. Let's go to Joel. We've also got Amanda from Roxbury. We might have you if you call 888-720-WNPR. Joel, you are on the floor right now. Or standing up, or otherwise looking. There you are. Joel, I think you may have been kidnapped by bees. All right. I'm very concerned. He was calling up about bees. I hear some buzzing. The bees are clearly taking control. I'm not sure what's going on there. Let's go instead to Amanda in Roxbury. Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was calling to offer a rebuttal on the Graham Plattner thing.
Okay.
Okay. So I feel like progressives annoyed everyone in the country into fascism. And at this point, Graham Plattner is not a perfect person, but like I wouldn't want to be judged on stupid things I said when I was in my 20s. I have teenage and young adult children that are male, and they get angry, they say things that are stupid, and then they grow up and they mature. And so I feel like, why do our candidates have to be perfect compared to Republicans? Like, I think it's self-defeating.
I'm with you, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
You are pretty well describing. I mean, another way to think about this, maybe I'm making it too complicated, but you think about somebody like John Kerry, who was taken out over something he didn't really do. So the swift boating of John Kerry, where in fact he had, served virtuously, and I mean, there was really nothing wrong. It was all just, he was just kind of attacked based on nothing. So apparently being virtuous is not enough to keep you safe from going down. And so when we look at the kind of candidate who does well, and I think the Republicans did discover this, that they could put flawed candidates out there, candidates who might seem horrifically unqualified or weird. And if they came across as genuine and also genuinely interested in the problems of other people, that would suffice. And I think one thing Plattner does pretty well, and that the Democratic Party doesn't do very well, is sound like he's really interested in the problems of the average person. Whether he turns out to be an average person is, a linked but not entirely identical question. So yeah, I don't know, Amanda. I think you're making a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't want to be judged on stupid things I said in my 20s and have since, grown a lot and learned a lot, or my kids to be judged on the dumbest thing they did in their teen years, especially for somebody that's been to war. I just really feel like the maturing and growing story can be really genuine. People really can expand and be better people. So I don't agree with the previous caller saying that he has a character problem. I think people are capable of growth, and I think he's, shown that.
Yeah, I mean,
and the way he's handled it.
Here's the other part of this. I mean, this is a really, we could do a 4-hour show about this, because I remember I happened to be on the air, live and on the air at a different radio station the day the Star Report came out, and it was literally being faxed over to us. This is in the days of fax, page by page, and this is at a commercial radio station. So during the commercials, I would get up and run into the fax machine, and I'd come back with more pages from the Star Report. And Bill Curry, who had served in the Clinton White House prior to that, was with me on the air. And we're reading this stuff, and trying to read it during the commercials and stuff, and we're just looking at each other going, this is unbelievable. There's no way he survives this. This is going to take him out forever. Well, not only did it not do that, but ultimately, if he'd been eligible to have run in 2000, he would have won that election easily against anybody they might have put up against him. And I think at that point, we simultaneously changed the standards, lowered our standards in certain ways. I mean, maybe some of that stuff should have been disqualifying, but we also sort of said, we're going to look at a bigger picture. And as a country, we're going to look at a bigger picture. We're going to, the Clintons kind of, their whole 8-year thing was sort of, okay, well, there's some really messed up things about us, but, we're kind of hoping that, the benefits outweigh the harms. And I think since then we've had that conversation going all the time. And I think it's not a simple one. And I'm not suggesting that you think it's a simple one either. It's like you'd probably rather that Plattner didn't have some of this stuff sticking to him. But, as you say, I mean, nobody's perfect might be an interesting campaign slogan.
Yeah, and someone that's been through real hardship, but he served tours. I mean, that's a character development. I mean, I don't know. Those experiences can really shape you. So
yeah, I think you get a pass on tattoos you got after Fallujah or something. It's kind of like, okay, we got it. You almost died 16 times. You went out, you got hammered, you get some really stupid tattoos.
And progressives really have to stop like word policing and annoying everyone into further fascism. Like we need to be a little more accepting of people.
I'm with you all the way, Amanda. Thanks very, very much for your call and for your wisdom. Okay, we're going to go back to Joel, who, when we last talked to him, was being killed by bees. But the story may have a happy ending. Hi, Joel.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Good.
Sorry, I'm still alive.
Good. Thank God.
Yeah. The Guardian put out a article about swarms and swarms happening earlier this year. And I know I'm a beekeeper in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I know that every time I go to help someone with a swarm, they are panic-stricken, scared to death, and living in fear inside the house. They won't come out. And I just want to give a little public service announcement that when a colony will swarm from its home, whether it be a wild swarm from a tree or from a beekeeper's hive, because they're leaving because they're overcrowded. And what happens is the bees, as a cooperative thinking entity, they grab the queen, the current queen, and they move her out of the hive. And when they land somewhere, which is usually what people see is on a bush, a tree or something, that's a way station. They're literally just hanging on because the queen landed, and they use that way station to send out scouts to then look for their final home. And before they left, they've laid eggs, the queen has laid eggs. They've turned those eggs into new queen cells, so they're going to create a new colony with a new queen. They've also filled their stomach. They have two stomachs, one for transporting nectar and one for digestion. They filled their stomach that is filled with nectar when they leave. It's like packing your bags before you leave to go swarm and go to the next home and set up shop. So when their stomach is so full of nectar, they are incredibly calm. It's like after Super Bowl Sunday or Thanksgiving when you just want to lie on the couch. So as a beekeeper, I can literally walk up to a swarm of bees that are on a limb or a bush and take a box and put it underneath them and just shake the branch, and the bees and the queen will fall in the box, and I close the box and I walk away. That puts the fear of God into most people. Mm. But bees are a farmed animal almost. They're not a wasp. Most people say, oh, I got stung by a bee. 99% of the time it's a wasp. Bees are actually incredibly gentle. When they're on flowers, they won't bother you. If you're near the hive and you bang on the hive and you get in their way and you bother them, they're going to protect their home, which is their hive. But in general, bees are incredibly calm and relaxed, and especially on a blue sky, sunny, mild day. So I just want to put it out there that swarms are happening early this year because we've had an incredibly warm season. The bees have come out of winter and they have started producing. The queen is producing a lot. They're able to go out and get that early nectar and early pollen off of all of the nature that's exploded because of the early warmth. And so now they've filled up their cavities in the tree or their hives from a beekeeper that's not watching them, and they've run out of room.
Our boss, who took the person who screened your call, is now saying that bees play soccer or can be trained to. On the other hand, there were some brownies in the break room that she ate that may not have been what they said.
There are videos out there with bumblebees doing that, which is very, very funny. But bees can see color, they can see shapes. If you put a diamond shape of red on the front of your hive, their eyes see red as black, and so they'll see a big black diamond and go to that hive. If the hive next to it has a circle that's purple or orange or something, they will see that as a different shape and they will gravitate to that as their home. But each colony has its own fragrance that stems from the queen's pheromones.
I'm impressed that we got all the way through this conversation without saying waggle dance, which is actually one of my favorite bee terms, is waggle dance.
The coolest thing about bees, once you get to know them and once you become a beekeeper, is there's so many, and that's the reason I kept doing it, and I'm still reading incredibly tons and tons of information about bees because they are so fascinating. And for your listeners, the bees do a waggle dance to their foraging bees. So they're bees that have gone through all their jobs throughout the hive, which 99.9% of them are female. They fly out, they find the nectar, they find pollen, they find water source. They come back to the colony, they go onto a very busy frame of bees, and they will dance and do figure eights or circles depending on the distance and the angle to the sun that the product is located. And so they can tell the colony where to go get this nectar that she just found.
Yeah, through the dance. I think it's really impressive. I think it's something humans should take up. We should all maybe do a little waggle dance once, rather than just explaining everything to people. The next time your significant other or spouse or partner asks you a question, do a little waggle dance to explain what it is you want to say. Speaking of which, we're going to squeeze this one call in here, then we're going to go to break. We have time to take other calls on the other side of the break. The number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. But I think we need to get to Ed in Hamden immediately. Hi, Ed. You have the floor.
Hello.
Hi, Ed.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Loud and clear, Ed.
Oh, good. So, you were talking about being married or having significant others who have an occupation that maybe you could or couldn't get credit for or draw some knowledge from. So I have a little bit of experience with that. So I'm 84 years old. I've been married 3 times. I'm on my 3rd one now. First wife was a kitchen designer. And actually a fairly significant kitchen designer, very high-end stuff in Fairfield County. And my second wife was a psychoanalyst and psychotherapist. So,
well, what about wife number 3, though?
Wife number 3 is actually in a creative field, a package designer in the cosmetics business. And the funny thing is, I learned a whole lot more from the kitchen designer and from the psychoanalyst. However, what I learned from those 2 has really helped me in my 3rd marriage for sure, because she's redoing a kitchen in a new place she bought, and I was able to give her some very sound advice.
I think you probably said
you're probably not willing to hear from me.
Yeah, you probably told her you would be less depressed if your parents had a different kind of center island. Just trying to put the whole thing all together again. That's the thing. You're accumulating, but there should be kind of a synthesis that goes on. All right, we have to take a little break here. If anybody would like to discuss Ed's personal life, they can call 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR.
Will it be? Yes, it will. Maybe just by holding still, it'll be there. Come on, something, come on in. Don't be shy, meet a guy, pull up a chair. The air is humming, and something great is coming. It's only just out of reach, down the block on a beach. Maybe tonight, maybe tonight, maybe tonight.
sneaking around, looking over my shoulder and peeking around the corners. Sick with worry that God will cut me down, with a grand piano falling like a cartoon from the Warners. Would you come to a Catholic mass? Would you be my favorite martyr? Mary, Mary, sing oh Terry, Father says I must confess, say my 15 Hail Marys, dressed in my Sunday best.
And we are back. It's time to say some thank you, starting with the Maestro Dylan Reyes, our technical producer. Robin Doyen Aiken, who is our boss, is also handling the phones today and being nice to you and treating you like real human beings, which is your last chance to have that happen before you get on the air. And then making her debut today, the Isaac Moss Report is producing this episode of Ask or Tell Me Anything. The Isaac Moss Report, it's not clear to me exactly what the fiduciary relationship between Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions and the Isaac Moss Report are, but it's like some kind of form of vertical integration that I don't entirely understand or want to understand in case I'm subpoenaed and deposed. All right, and sequestered. All right, so let's grab a few calls here. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. That's what we do. Let's start with LaShawn. We've also got John. We got some other calls coming in. We got a lot of calls. Why do they all come in at the end every time? All right, hold on. LaShawn, you have the floor.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Just fine.
So I'm a first-time caller, and I don't know that I captured all of this, but I wanted to push back a bit against your enthusiastic support for the comment about progressive shaming people into fascism. I think that, one, your caller might have meant authoritarianism, and two, one can't possibly blame progressives for wanting a better and a fairer and a more equal country. And secondly, this is all very, very, very serious. And I don't think there's any progressive who wants to blame young men or women for their worst day of public commentary. But we actually now live in a country where the denigration of women and of women's rights is central to this administration's power, and where a lot of men in power denigrate women and denigrate women's accomplishments and blame feminism for their own failures. So I think that when we have parts of the population who hide behind and blame progressivism for shaming people into fascism, that this is a deadly mistake and is a very cavalier response to the egregiousness of what's happening in this country today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for Amanda because, I mean, she said that and we didn't really entirely explore the meaning of it. My interpretation of it was we certainly went through a time and sort of was, I think, true at the height of cancel culture where people were being judged for the worst thing they ever did or said. And they were being judged in pretty punitive and dismissive ways for the worst thing that they ever did or said. And we actually lost a lot of people who had, I think, value to the public discourse because of that kind of stridency. And I'm not suggesting that other kinds of denigration of any group, women or anybody else, are okay, but they also can be talked out in a way that with reasonable people. I mean, with horrible people, there's nothing you can do. But with reasonable people, they can be talked out in a way that's kind of productive and doesn't drive us further apart. It seemed to me that we went through a period. It kind of coincided with George Floyd but also COVID. It all kind of piled up together. But we went through a period where it seemed like the goal was to get rid of certain people. And I think we kind of do see how that worked out. Probably saying that it pushed people into fascism. You're right. That might have been a little bit of hyperbole, but I think I know what she meant, which is rather than have a dialogue about something, you locate the worst thing that they ever said and then you cancel them.
I don't actually know how often that happened. I think that's a little bit of exaggeration.
I watched it. I swear to God, I watched it happen to multiple friends and colleagues.
Who's not a lot on social media, I do think that we need to nevertheless, I don't know about cancel culture. Again, I think that, like the term woke, it's been misapplied and used to kind of harm people. But I would say that all of us should be in a position of learning, right? And we're in this world to learn from one another. But it also has to be the case that I don't want to spend my life as a Black woman talking you out of your misogyny and out of your racism. And I do think that there are things that are beyond the pale and that it's not my responsibility to talk through you with when you tell me that I am not your equal and that I'm subordinate. So I do think there's a larger conversation here about what can you talk people through and whose responsibility is, because as far as I'm concerned, it's not my responsibility to disabuse people of their racist and sexist attitudes. And some things are, in fact, beyond the pale as an expression of your belief, or you may believe them, and you should be canceled for them. If you tell me you're a black woman and you shouldn't be flying a plane in this country, or if you are flying this plane, the plane's not safe, I actually don't think you and I have anything to discuss.
No, I totally agree with you. I don't disagree with anything that you just said. What I will say is I think we went through a period where we were looking for deal breakers. And I think we ought to be doing the opposite thing, because the way that you acquire power is through coalition. And bringing a lot of people into the tent. And yes, there are disqualifying things, and you just very eloquently summed up a lot of them. But I think that has to be balanced against the goal of having a successful political coalition, and that involves incorporating some viewpoints which are maybe a little bit different or don't perfectly align. I mean, reproductive choice is often one that comes up around this, but there are a lot of them. And what I'm hoping, I think you're right. We should always be learning about each other. And that means sometimes listening to people and wondering if there's any room to, make some kind of accommodation between the two of you. I don't mean to cut this conversation off, but we got a whole bunch more calls here. I'm just going to go down the line here. I guess we'll go to Nancy next. Hi, Nancy.
Hi. I guess I have a lot of political ideas, but that's not why I called today.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention to you and your team that you produced a very poignant show. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was a young singer who died in a fire. And you produced a wonderful memorial to her.
To Jill. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I never had the chance to thank you and tell you what a lovely job you did. All of you did. And thanks. Sometimes we need things like that on our radio.
Well, we still miss her. She was very special to us. And there are very few people who've ever been on this show who had quite the relationship that we felt we had with Jill. So, yeah, I really appreciate that. All right, let's go to John. John, that's Jill Sobel, if I didn't say the last name. But here's John in Cheshire. Hi, John.
Hi, Colin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I just wanted to respond to, and not about per se, the man that called in earlier about sex with plants and pollination, et cetera. And he asked the question, something to the effect, why is this country, or do we tend to be, prudish because of religion? I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But I just wanted to cite an anecdote from about 30-some years ago when I was on a business trip in Brussels, Belgium, and my last night before I was flying back to New York, I was staying in a hotel that had a wonderful workout center, including a swimming pool. And when I finished that, I decided, I'll go into the wet sauna, the hot, steamy sauna. And when I went in, it was almost pitch dark. It was very, very difficult to see because it was very poorly lit. But there were a lot of people, and I had to crawl over people and to get to like the top bench. And when I looked out and my eyes adjusted, I was the only one in there wearing clothes, and that was a swimsuit.
Are you sure this was a sauna? Just checking. Okay.
Yes, it was. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm the one that looks really weird and out of place in here. But at that point, I wasn't about to stand up and remove my swim trunks because I thought that might make it even more obvious. At any rate, I do think our country has had for years a very prudish and hung up culture. But
you know which plants have a lot of sex and think about sex all the time? Because it's very germane to your story, John. Brussels sprouts. And what happens in Brussels stays in Brussels. Thanks for listening today. God willing, we'll be back for more this week.